come through real life experience. Yeah, and that's a little bit of who I am. You can find me on Mindful Warriors Way or Michelle Dosanjh-Johal at Kajabi, or you can find me on Instagram, Mindful Warriors Way or Mothers of Mental Health.
Perfect. First question for you, because I know I kind of built up to this, but what does it mean to make stress your bitch?
To make stress your bitch is it means you're not gonna let stress be the thing that takes over your life. You're the one who has a handle on that stress, right? Uh, and so I'm so glad that you asked that because no one ever asks. And that's the name of my program, Make Stress Your Bitch, because we can all learn to do that with certain strategies. Hmm.
Now, am I being too forward in asking what are some of those strategies?
Not at all. So I created the FAST framework, and I think I talked a little bit about my story last time, but in order to understand where it came from, is it okay if I just kind of talk about a little bit about the story again
Of course, the story is so good. It's like New York, New York, right? So nice we have to name it twice. So go ahead, please.
Why, thank you. Um, so yeah, I'm not sure if the story itself is really great. So my two children have had a lot of challenges. So my daughter, she's the one who we thought was going to be okay. So my son was being diagnosed at about 3 years old with autism. And my daughter was being diagnosed with high functioning autism a little bit later on. She was about 9. But at 11, we went to the doctor, and the doctor ended up being suspicious about her height. And he diagnosed her with this very rare health disorder, mosaic Turner syndrome. And it affects 1 in 2,500 girls. And unfortunately, that came with a whole set of health issues and later on mental health issues. So she ended up with open heart surgery at 15 years old. At 17, she had multiple hospitalizations, blood transfusions her grade 12 year. She has a hormone condition, needed to take growth hormones. And then, unfortunately, when she was 17, turning 18, ended up with major mental health issues. And so, oh, yes, and then my son as well. He has autism and intellectual disability, and at around 11 years old, was diagnosed with a very, well, not a rare, but a mood disorder. And so we've had a lot on our plates. And I've had to, I say that experienced many, many dark nights of the soul because there was, and every single time I would go through this darkness, I would just focus on one thing that would pull me out. And I think spoke a little bit about it before, but that's the love that I have for my children. And so this love would carry me through the crisis. And, somehow I'd find my smile again, my joy again. And eventually I was a social emotional learning teacher, and I taught special needs and many other things, but I started utilizing these strategies that were getting me from just kind of getting through to actually being good. And I learned how to heal myself using these strategies. So I thought I'm going to put these strategies together and call it the FAST framework, FAST. And so, just speaking really, really quickly on the strategies, the F is to feel and process and express. Um, we can't pretend our way to our healing. It actually takes courage and vulnerability to sit with your emotions and your darkness and process it. And the way that I was able to do that was so my daughter had had her open heart surgery She was, and again, I might have spoken a little bit to this before too, but she had had her open heart surgery. She was 4 weeks in, and my son's mood disorder shows up. And he was 11 years old and depressed. So, an 11-year-old getting depressed. And we had to actually bolt the front door because he would, open the door and he'd bolt up the stairs into traffic, um, flop onto the pavement, and try to hurt himself. And so I was still taking care of my daughter, and she was still in recovery, and I'm taking care of my son, and I'm talking to a therapist, and she says, "What are you doing for yourself?" And it sounded so ludicrous, right, to say because I'm a caretaker. I'm in the middle of caring for my daughter, and now my son, I didn't know what was going on with him. But she said, "No excuses. You have to do one thing for yourself." And I used to love writing, and I was always very passionate about writing. And so that's how I came back to my poetry. And I thought, I might not have time to write long stories, but I can certainly write poems. Right. So I started just, drinking my morning coffee and writing away. Before you knew it, I ended up with a poetry page on Instagram, Mindful Warriors Way. And then eventually that turned into my book being published, The Warrior Sings. And that was always a childhood dream of mine. And so allowing myself the space to feel and process my emotions through the poetry was doing two things. It was healing my trauma because I was allowing myself to go there to all those dark, ugly places. And if you read my book, you'll see that some of it is quite dark. Um, and then there was a coming back to myself. And so there was a component of self-love there. And in the midst of all this craziness, I was allowing some space for my dreams and my passions. And I wasn't accepting any excuses just because my life was crazy. And really, all it took was a few minutes a day, right? 15 minutes to half an hour a day. And then it all adds up. Even if you give yourself a fraction of time, it doesn't have to be something huge and crazy, right? And so I'll stop there for now because otherwise I'll just go on and on and on.
No, they're here for you, and that story is fantastic. I can't. How am I going to top that, Michelle? I can't top that.
I'm sure
One
you
thing,
can.
yeah, one thing I want to add is I think so many people don't understand how much time they actually have in the day until
Hmm.
they stop and they take a moment. Okay, let me count the days or the hours and the minutes. There's a time back when I had oh my God, I'm getting old. I'm forgetting what it's called. Instagram. When I used to have Instagram, and one
You
day I
don't
was
have it
like,
anymore? That's a shame.
I don't. Yeah, yeah. I could only navigate two social media at a time. I'm old. I only can navigate two, right? It's like when you see older people walk up the stairs, it's one step, then one foot, right? They don't go two at a time anymore or three. So what
Well,
I
I'm
was
in the
doing one
same
day,
boat. So,
yeah, yeah. What I was doing one day is I just said, hey, Term, like, why don't you track how much time you're spending on Instagram at the time?
mhm.
So I got my weekly average. It was 6 hours a day.
Oh, wow.
And I sat and I was like, okay, let me refresh this because it doesn't feel like it's 6 hours, but it
Right.
was 6 hours a day. And I was like, what the hell am I doing? That's a part-time job. Right. So when you mention self-care and self-love, 15 minutes, some people are like, oh, I don't have 15 minutes. Okay, what are you doing? You may sleep 6 to 8, let's say 8. You're working another 8, that's 16. You have 8 hours. What are you doing with those 8 hours?
I love that. Mhm. A reframe,
Right.
right? For all
Yeah, you got to, right?
yeah.
Because we can always find excuses not to do things, especially when it's things that are maybe foreign or difficult. But for you, when you started to do it, how did you feel, like from a self-worth or a value perspective?
Mhm. I mean, I don't think that it was, some sort of, epiphany, or, it wasn't anything that came suddenly. It kind of built with time. And then, um, and at some point, I realized, oh my gosh, actually found peace amidst a whole lot of chaos. Um, but it didn't come all at once. It came with a lot of work. And these strategies too, right? They're a lot of work, and they can work for you if you choose to do the work. And the work isn't easy. It's ugly, it's raw, it's deep, um, it's dark. The peace isn't just going to come. You have to work for it. And you have to process all those things and all those traumas, and uh, before you get to the light on the other side. So yeah, it wasn't an epiphany, though. I do have to say there were moments when I would be using the strategies where I would I feel a sense of peace kind of wash over me, but to get to a place of greater peace, it took time, took a lot of time and a lot of work. Yeah.
For those who are maybe struggling to identify the type of self-love that they need, what are some ways that we can help them to identify it?
That's a good question. Um, what is your self-talk? You know, are you kind to yourself? Do you talk to yourself the way you would talk to a friend? Or do you constantly criticize yourself, demean yourself? Like, start listening to how you speak to yourself. Um, because it's actually so powerful, right? The words we say to ourselves are so incredibly powerful, and we don't even realize it because words are energy, right? There have been all these studies done, um, including Dr. Emoto, Dr. Masaru Emoto. Yeah, his study of words actually changing the molecules of water into these beautiful shapes depending on, what words were spoken. And then if someone is speaking ugly words, the molecules would change accordingly. Like, that's powerful stuff. So words are energy, and energy matters. So what you say to yourself, it matters, right? So start there. Are you being kind to yourself? What are you saying to yourself? And I actually do have, there's a free insight timer, um, affirmations. If you want to start reprogramming what you say to yourself, and be kinder to yourself. I'll look that up while, while I give the floor to you.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, that's a really good point because I shared with someone the other day. I was on their show and I said that sometimes others, parents, family members,
Mhm.
boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, whatever the case is, sometimes they'll plant seeds in our minds that create
Mhm.
this talk or this conversation. And then I posed to the person, I was like, but who's watering it? Are we watering the
I
seeds
love
of
that.
doubt or is it someone
Right.
else? Right.
Right.
And the person was like, hmm. I was like, well, think about it. Your family's a doc, your parents are doctors, you're a doctor. Why?
Right.
Right? Your father was an alcoholic and you're dating men that are only alcoholics. Why? Your mother was a verbally abusive and you're dating women that verbally abuse. Like, where is all of this coming from, right? And I think sometimes we get stuck, to your point, the self-talk is that this is what I've seen, this is what I've known, so let me talk myself into those situations, not
Right.
knowing while I'm there, or worse yet, let's say, for example, they turn into limiting beliefs. I am not good enough for a
Mhm.
good partner,
Mhm.
right? When it
Absolutely.
when it comes to those types of thoughts, how can we help people who maybe it's ingrained from them from a family perspective or just
Right.
years of programming
Yes.
from outside factors?
Exactly. And so that actually is part of my program as well, because the T part of my FAST framework is to transform. And Transforming starts with our thoughts, and it starts with our programming, exactly what you're talking about, right? It's like we've been programmed at a subconscious level, and it takes some work to go there and to start to examine, well, what do I believe? Whoa, where did this, and when you start to give it just some attention and start to notice what the thoughts are that are coming up when you're and thoughts are these thoughts are going to be linked to your emotions, right? So when you're going through, when something's triggering you and you're having an emotional response, that's when you start to notice, well, what is the thought? Oh, and then you might even go, where the hell did that come from? That thought's not true. Where did it come from? And then you can start, tracing it back to a time in your life that it was probably programmed into you. And we can reprogram ourselves, but it starts with deconstructing our limiting beliefs, because that's all it is. It's a belief. It doesn't necessarily make it true. It's just something we were programmed with, right? And I love the way you put it too.
Thank you. Well, like I told you, I have to keep up with your story, right? So that's me keeping up with your story.
I do have the free, it's on Insight Timer, and it's called Radical Self-Love Affirmations for Healing. And they're free on Insight Timer. And it's just like 2 minutes of listening to positive self-talk about yourself and what the things you can say instead, the
Can you give
affirmation.
us an example of one of those?
I can't even remember all the things I put in there, but something like I choose myself, right? Yeah. And I'm worthy, something as simple as that, to combat some of the negative things you might be saying to yourself. Yeah.
Sometimes I hear people say that, well, when I choose myself, I feel that I'm being selfish.
Okay, this is a very important conversation to have, right? This is the myth that's out there. The myth is that self-love is selfish, and we're not talking about making yourself better than anyone else. Nobody said that. We're not saying put yourself on a pedestal. You're now better than anyone else because you're loving yourself. Where did this idea come from? We're simply making ourselves equal. That's it, right? I mean, we put so much into our loved ones often, right? Especially like women that are caretakers. We will put so much into, the people we're caring for. And that's not a bad thing. But you also have to put yourself into the equation and care for yourself. Because if you end up burning out, you're going to end up tired. You're going to end up stressed. You're going to end up resentful. You're going to end up sick. And then you're not going to be good for anyone else. So we're not talking about a narcissistic kind of love. There are narcissistic people out there. This is not what we're talking about. We're not talking about, oh, you're better than anyone else. We're not putting ourselves on a pedestal. We're making ourselves equal. And that's the distinction here. And that's not selfish, because here's the thing. When we actually start to care for ourselves, then we start to heal ourselves. When we heal ourselves, our energy and our frequency and our vibration increases. And we're in a better place now to care for the people around us. We're in a better place for all of our loved ones. Our healing affects them, and that affects their healing. And so if you actually think about it, if everybody just did the work of healing themselves, then we would have like a healed nation. That's not selfish. That's powerful, right? We're talking about healing. Self-love is healing. And I can tell you that from experience, because when I stepped into self-love, that was the first step of my healing journey. I had no idea how powerful this stuff could be. So, yeah, no, not selfish.
I wonder sometimes for those who are at the beginning of the journey, because I remember my time of that journey, and I'll get your input as well, is when I wasn't the type of person who, when I learn something, I immediately want to go share with someone else, right? Let's
Mm,
say, for example, and I love you, my Christians, like when someone becomes a new Christian, all of a sudden, immediately they start preaching, right?
mhm,
Some
mhm.
people will get turned off from it, some people are accepting, and there's people in between.
Yeah.
But what I found, and it's something I had to overcome early on, is that as I was progressing on my journey, the people around me made me feel like I was selfish because
Oh.
they viewed me as better because some of the things that I would normally do with them, I
Mhm,
wasn't doing. And the shaming tactics and the guilt trips, right? Oh,
mhm,
you think you're better
mhm.
than us? You're bougie, you're this, you're that. So could it be then sometimes people get it from the outside and then it questions themselves instead of them thinking it internally and then going outward?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But, I mean, you're always gonna have those people who don't understand it and who don't get it. There's gonna be a group of people that'll constantly wanna keep you small, right? And we're talking about the work of evolving. Healing is growth, is evolving, and there's going to be people who feel threatened by that. There's always going to be people who feel threatened by that, right? But what I say is that if you can't handle my shine, put on some sunglasses, right? Because if someone else can't handle the fact that you're growing and you're evolving and you're shining, like they should be in your corner cheering you on. If they can't do that, then bye bye boundaries. Then you're not my people, right? So that's a boundary. Your people are the ones that are going to cheer you on and get it, you know? But there's always going to be people like that because as other people heal and as other people shine, it threatens them because people don't want to change, right? They want to stay in their little cocoon because it feels safe there. And there seems scary, you know? That place where, you were at, that looks scary. What's he doing, you know? Like, so they're gonna call it names. You're being bougie, you're being this, you're being that. But really, they're just threatened because they don't want to disrupt their cocoon because it's comfortable. Change is uncomfortable. Yeah.
It's like the person who is starting to heal themselves and then they're starting to create some distance between their peer group. And now the peer group begins to attack them a little bit, right? Saying that,
Mhm.
oh, we haven't seen you in a while. How come you don't hang out? How come you don't drink? How come you don't do
Mm,
that?
mhm.
Well, it's a way to get you back in. I used to date a girl a while back. She fell into that
Now it's
with me
getting
and
juicy.
after me. I know now it's getting juicy, right? It's like
Yeah,
those
bring it on.
celebrity those celebrity news magazines that are at the registers when you guys read them. So one thing she went through was, I'm trying to remember correctly, is as her and I were dating, we were spending more time together, and as a result, she's spending less time with this friend group.
Mhm.
And one thing I asked her is that, is this normal for you to spend, let's say, every other day or every second day with your partner? She's like, no, sometimes I used to see before you it was like once a week, once a month. So she was always able to balance it. But because now there's more time and effort between the two of us, it has to take from somewhere. There's only so much time in the day.
Mhm.
So in the beginning, I noticed something strange is that she would do you remember when when we would tell our parents we're going outside? It's like, okay, I'm going out. I'll be back by 11. It was
Mhm.
that. So when I started to notice it, I was like, that's kind of odd. Like, why do you feel in your 30s you have to tell your friends? But first I thought it was a safety thing. I was like, oh my God, am I unsafe?
Yeah, yeah, right. Yeah.
Right? But to her, it was just normal until she started to see how my friends and I, men and women, interacted, and she didn't see that we did that. So she stopped doing it. So it created tension where they started kicking out people out of the peer group who were in relationships.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Right? So I remember one day she got a message that she shared it with me. I was like, that's Mean Girls. movie, right? I was
Right.
like, you're kicking people out, and we laughed about it because I know that she was bothered by it, but she shared that it was a hard time for her to leave those people because if things didn't work out, that she would be alone, and she hated being alone. So I share that story with you, Michelle,
Mhm.
because when you're helping some of these people who are, let's say, in relationships or not in relationships, but they're working on themselves, they have the self care, the self love, the self worth, but they're starting to create distance between the people that they used to hang around with. But there's that fear of being alone, that fear of loneliness. How do we help them through that?
Yeah, I mean, you have to I mean, fear is the opposite of faith, right? You have to make a choice. You could either sit in fear or you can sit in faith. And you can have faith that as you evolve, the right people will come and surround you. And these are the people that are going to uplift you, not hold you back. Um, yeah, and I don't believe in living out of fear anymore. Because if I did that, it would have crippled me with everything that my kids were going through. Because fear will have you go to the worst scenarios and the worst thoughts and the worst, situations. And is that how you want to live? Or do you want to live in the energy of love, which is also the opposite of fear? Do you want to live in with faith, and hope? Um, it's a choice. Uh, it really is. You could stop those thoughts and just search for a better one, little by little. Hmm.
Do you think people are aware that they have a choice in these things?
Nope. A lot of people don't, right? A lot of people are asleep at the wheel of their lives, and it's about waking up, right? We have to wake up and realize that this is a choice. Even despite the worst circumstances, like I just laid out all the, forgive my language, shit that we've had to go through with our children, but it was a choice to rise up, right? Because I couldn't afford to become depressed. And I have to I have to also say though, I'm fortunate because I don't have a mental illness, right? My children have had to suffer through mental illness, and that's a different ball game. And so if you're suffering from a mental illness, then I'm that's this is not the population of people I'm speaking about. But if you don't, then of course you have a choice with your mindset, right? If you don't have a mental illness, then of course you have a choice, right? And um you could choose better. You could choose better thoughts. You can choose to rise up. And for me, it wasn't a choice to become depressed and hopeless and burn out. I had to be the best mom I could be because these kids need me, right? And if you're in the middle of your mental, and this is why I say that they don't necessarily have a choice, because I see all of these people on the streets in Vancouver. The statistics say maybe 60 to 70% actually have a mental illness, right? And when you're going through the middle of like hallucinations or delusions or psychosis, God forbid, which is what I had to watch my daughter go through, you've lost your mind. It's an illness of the mind. And so you don't have control over your mind, right? Your mind is playing tricks on you and telling you the worst possible things. So in that case, yeah, you probably are going to need medication. You have an illness of the mind. And I also don't think that there should be a stigma around that. If you're at a place where you are so in such a dark, dark place, then the choice might be, okay, I need to take medication, right? So maybe they do have a choice, but when they've lost their mind, like when I saw my daughter lose her mind, she was not herself. She's usually this gentle, kind, empathetic kid, and she was someone I didn't recognize. And that's what I want people to remember. I want people to remember that someone with an illness of the mind, they are not in their right mind. That is not who they are, right? In that moment, they need help to get back to themselves. And so, unfortunately, what happens when they don't get that kind of help? They end up on the streets, right? Or they end up um, worse. So,
I
yeah,
wonder sometimes that for those who are on the journey, such as yourself, that maybe the need of an event, such as what your children are going through, or such as someone hitting rock bottom, is necessary for some people to understand that you need to make a decision now.
yeah, prob- probably. You're probably right. Yeah, to shake them up and to
Yeah.
realize that it's needed. Hmm.
Yeah, because if it's as simple as the Matrix, right? Red pill or blue pill, how many people would actually choose the red pill and want to do something differently, which would ultimately benefit their life, or just choose a blue pill and go back to what they know because in their mind it hasn't killed them, so how bad can it be?
Right. Yeah. Good analogy.
Yeah, that's always been my concern, right? So, how do we shake them up and say that you do have a choice? You don't have to be stuck. You can be God's gift to men and women. How do we get them to that point?
Well, you know what? Everyone has free will, so you can't. We can, we could preach until we're blue in the face. We can bring, the sacred water to them, but it's up to them to drink, right? And so that's where free will comes in. And sometimes it's frustrating for me because there have been people where I know that I can help them and I know I could make major changes in their lives, but they have to say yes to themselves and say, "Yeah, okay, I want the help and I'm going to use the strategies." And I'm not saying that my framework is the only healing framework out there. There's a lot of different approaches, right? If go to a psychiatrist. I mean, most of the people I've asked that come to me that are in a really dark place, the first thing I say is, "Well, have you seen a therapist?" Right? And then we'll see if they want to possibly work with me. There's lots of different modalities out there. Um, and I know that my framework works because I've seen it work for people and I've seen it work for myself. But it frustrates me when I know I can help someone, but they say no. But free will, terrain, free will. Can't force anybody, right?
You're absolutely right. Well, everyone it goes back to what you said, right? Everyone has a choice. They can choose to become better, they can choose to stay the same, or they can choose to be worse.
Hmm.
All right. And
Hmm.
those are three choices. There's one really good one out of the three, but there's two that's really comfortable. And human beings
Exactly.
love comfort.
Exactly. Well, and animals too. Did you know that a caged animal, even when they're set free and the door is, left open, they'll often just stay in their cage or they'll just walk around in circles, even when they're free, because it's like that's what they know. And it's scary out there. The unknown is scary. Exactly. You like nailed it before. So,
Yeah, it's very scary. It took me almost 10 years to learn my lesson, but I
mm,
had to learn it the hard way, and I wouldn't if I could not go through with it and be the
mhm,
same person I am today, sure. But
mhm.
if I don't go through that, I'm a totally different person. I would go through it every single time because I love who I am now.
Yes, I love that. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Me too. Everything I've gone through has made me into who I am today, and I think I'm pretty great. I love myself too. Isn't it so weird? Like it feels so weird to say that, but we should all be in that place. you know?
Yeah, we should be. Someone a couple weeks ago, someone asked me, they're like, Train, you're one of the most positive people I ever met. I was like, thank you. I really do
Yep.
appreciate that. And they're like,
Mhm.
how do you do it? I was like, well, I choose not to let things bother me. Like, okay, how do you do that? I just identify what makes me feel good and what doesn't, and I spend more time with what makes me feel good and what doesn't. And like in every aspect, I was like, in every aspect of my life. Let me say it nice and soul for you.
Love
In
that.
every aspect of my life. And then the person asked me, since we talked about social media, they're like, are you on social media? I was like, yeah, if it's business related, like my charities and things like that. They're like, so what do you do? I'm like, I go outside. Outside is nice. I'm a, I'm an 80s, 90s baby. We were outside.
Yeah.
Like you're older than me, so I know you're outside. Right? But I share that example because some people just forget what used to make them happy because there's so many
Mm.
distractions out there. Do you see that as well? And if so, how do we help them to be less distracted and to rekindle their passions, such as you
Yeah.
did with your writing and stuff like that?
Well, that's actually I created a a mini course, and that's part of it. It's, my mini course is called Say create that I created is Say Yes to Yourself. And YES is an acronym which stands for, so um you matter. So come back home to the pieces of yourself that you lost along the way. Evolve, because your dreams and your goals matter. And then the S is self-care, right? So it's just interesting that you would ask that question. But I mean, just ask yourself, what did you used to do that you stopped doing because adulthood or responsibilities, etc., got in the way? um, for me, writing was one of those things, and so I just started to make some space for that again, and give it a try, right? Reconnect with that old part of you. So I would say reconnect with the old pieces of you that you lost along the way, that you loved and you don't want to lose, but also continue to evolve in other ways, because we're always going to be constantly growing, constantly dynamic, right? We're um, constantly changing. Yeah.
Growth is such a beautiful thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Evolving in a healthy direction.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because some people can go the other way and they become chaotic, unfortunately.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. I didn't think about that. Yeah.
Michelle, let me ask you one final question before I let you go, but you're probably familiar with this. Three wishes. Okay. What are three things you wish people knew about the benefits of evolving in a healthy way and why?
So 3 things I wish people knew. I wish people understood that if you were to evolve with self-love, okay, so kind of what we talked about, that it's not selfish, that it's healing, and that when you're healing, you're actually reconnecting to your soul space. And when you reconnect to your soul, there's peace there. There's a kind of profound peace that people aren't even aware is out there. But you have to start that work with understanding that self love is not selfish, and start doing that work, right? Yeah. It's like, it's like, I was working with my shaman last year. So I did a lot of deeper work. So I did all the strategies in my course, and then I stepped up to do even deeper work. And she explained it like 3 different levels that human beings can kind of operate on. And the bottom level is a level of like anxiety and depression. And unfortunately, there are people that are still stuck there for the most part, but then they might oscillate between that line and the second line, which is just your normal human emotion, and, upsets and whatnot. And, you might have a little bit of joy and things there, but then there's a third line that people aren't even aware of. And this is a line where you're in touch with your soul, and that's in your soul is I believe, this is my belief, is that our soul is how we get in touch with the divine. That's the piece of the divine in us. And so when you're in touch with your soul, you can find that peace. And that's not to say that you're not going to oscillate between the lines. We're human, right? But you can stay at that line more of the time than the other two lines. And I